from a broader point of the picture, right? For one is we know that manufacturing jobs has been declining in the world, and the same is happening in China. So China's manufacturing jobs actually peaked in 23 of over 300 million, and now is slightly less than 300 million. This is a little bit outdated. This is 2018, but the trend continued. And I tell you that. Why? Because I think, we also saw in the stats from the Chinese, data bureau, that you're seeing the industrial sector share of the jobs has been declining. So the service sector is rising in its place, right? And so that seemed to be, conformed to, many countries' experience where the service sector is rising, whereas the manufacturing sector is declining. And one of the major reasons is because, for one, is the labor cost is actually rising in China, right? Even though many people think that China is a cheap cost production site, but that's no longer really the case. When you see, China's wage growth in the past 2 decades, right, it has rising relatively fast. And this manufacturing unit labor is taking into account the labor productivity, as you know. So that you can see that the wage cost, the wage competitiveness has been eroding. But at the same time, China continues to increase its manufacturing value added, right? Because it keeps adding value to its products, and that is not from intensive labor, but it's from capital and skill. So again, coming back to the reason why China is losing manufacturing jobs despite rising trade, it has a lot to do with technologies. And I think that China sees the robotics industry as one of the strategic emerging industries. And but that has significant job impacts, of course, right? So we know that China 2022 has adopted 268,000 industrial robots, and that is the largest of more than the rest of the world combined. But 77% of the Chinese jobs are faced this kind of vulnerability to automation, according to various studies. So 77%, right, up north of 70%. There's some very prominent cases where the Foxconn, as we know, the subcontractor of Apple, they laid off 400,000. Well, actually not laid off. They just replaced the jobs. Some of the jobs they never set ties to human beings, right? They replaced over 400,000 jobs with robots. And the Zhejiang province, which is the highly export-oriented province, they replaced over 2 million jobs with robots.